My name is Gontse, and I am so happy to welcome you to I Am Addiction Free. It is very difficult for me to tell you what I Am Addiction Free is. I want to describe it as a proclamation. Recognizing that in the healing community, we often use the word affirmation for something like this, positive words that we affirm to ourselves and to retune our mind's understanding of where we are on something, okay? Cleaning up our mindset. However, the word proclamation is what has come up for me, and when I look it up, it means an official public declaration issued by a person or body of authority, such as a head of state, to make an announcement or to enact a law. So it's a very formal word to use. But I believe that in an area, for example, like addiction, where there are so many official ways of handling its healing, okay, explaining it, especially given the sensitivity of the topic, okay, it's a very serious topic. I believe that proclamation is actually better than affirmation, simply because affirmations tend to sound like one is needing to remind themselves of where their authority lies on this topic in particular. For example, if I say I am recovering, I am a recovering addict, and this is no criticism on any addiction healing system that is out there. I don't want to discourage anyone from any route that they have approached or used or implemented and healed from. That is not the point of this. And actually, I will go on to explain how I feel I am addiction free has freed me from so much more than just addiction. Okay. And to return to the point I was making, to proclaim something is to say that this is where we stand on this topic. And we speak as the body of authority over ourselves on this topic. Okay. So this is now removing all judgment. Okay. All external judgment, which I have found personally to really cloud one's sense of personal authority over who decides whether you are an addict or not. Just to roll back on the meaning of the word addict, I looked it up as a point of departure. Okay. When I looked this word up, the etymology of it, what I found was, I'll just read from Etym Online. It says, to devote or give up oneself to a habit or occupation. Okay. To deliver, award, yield. Okay. Make over, sell. Okay. To give one's assent to, but figuratively, to devote, consecrate, sacrifice, sell out, betray, abandon. Okay. So what this was giving me was that to say that I am an addict is to affirm that I am addicted to something, that I am devoted to something, and that I have given up my power to something. Okay. Something external to me. Okay. Unless I'm addicted to myself, which then would not be an issue. The issue is that I have devoted my power to something that I feel is more powerful than I am. So this helped me understand that this topic of addiction is really one of sovereignty, feeling that I am powerless, okay, outside of this thing, that in order for me to feel my current understanding of free, I need that thing. To feel at ease, I need that thing. And when I say that thing, I'm referring to a substance or a behavior. I believe that that is pretty much it. If you feel that this could be expanded into more types of things, please feel free to add that in the comments. But for me, even focusing on what it is I'm addicted to is not really the point. With that said, I'd like to just share my disclaimer here. I am not a medical professional. I am not a healthcare professional. In fact, I'm not any kind of professional. Anyone dealing with addiction, please get yourself help from a professional, because I am not qualified to speak on a topic like this as any type of authority. I am only really speaking on behalf of myself, my personal story, something that has been sitting on my heart that I'd like to share, something that I have personally found extremely empowering and very healing. Okay, something that I have found my mind and body has been able to get around. Okay, and not in a long length of time. Okay, so I'm not calling this a shortcut on any level, because what I'd like to start by saying is that if you are not yet sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, if you are not yet tired of feeling powerless, if you are not yet ready to accept and or admit that you would really like your power back, or that your power, your sense of power has been sitting outside of yourself, then perhaps this recording is not for you, or at least not right now. And the reason that I shared this disclaimer at this point is because I will not be leading with what it is I'm addicted to. Okay, because whether it is a substance or a behavior is actually not the point. What I've found a lot of the time through speaking to a lot of people, I've asked a lot of people, how did you give that up? Okay, that being the thing. How did you do that? The answer I've often got from people is something like, I just quit. Okay, or I just blocked them. The reason I've brought up these two very different types of responses is because as I speak through this, I am addiction free. I'd like for you to allow this to be applied, okay, across various areas of your life where you might have found yourself feeling disconnected from your power, okay, from your center of power. What I mean by this is whether I am, let's say, dealing with feeling like I need a cigarette, okay, to find my center, whatever it is I'm addicted to, okay, whether it is that I need a puff from a vape, okay, so now I'm focusing on nicotine, and now I'm going to focus more on like behavioral stuff. I need to speak to that person. I need that person to call me. I cannot live without that person. I yearn for that person. Okay, so now we're speaking to more relationship, behavioral types of addictions. Yes, I'm calling that an addiction. Needing someone in your life, something that mentally you know has not been healthy for you, something that mentally you're aware has been unreliable towards you, feeling like you need that person in your life, okay, creating reasons why you need that person in your life for you to feel balanced, for you to feel loved, stronger, comfortable. I'm going to refer to that as an addiction, okay, because now that is something where you do not feel powerful enough to feel loved, to feel balanced, to feel centered, and to feel like you do not rely on that thing in order to feel strong and empowered. Okay, so that's the reason why I'm not actually giving this I am addiction free I'm not labeling whatever substance it is, whatever behavior it is, because it is the powerlessness that we are working towards healing. First, by admitting that we are distanced from it through our own understanding of where it needs to live, where that power sits, where we have put that power during this time that we have felt distanced from it. And an understanding that it is not someone else that has removed us or distanced us from that power. Even if up until now, our understanding of where our power is, where our power resides, even if that understanding has been, my power sits in that cigarette or that vape or that substance, because without it, my body feels like this. Without it, I respond like that. Okay. And so the environment that I'm in, tells me that I need this thing to help me to feel at ease. Okay. Or that person came into my life. That person, makes me feel like this, and that's why I really need to speak to them right now. I need them to call, and if they don't, I will never do this again. Okay? These kinds of conversations that we have. It's been very difficult for me to figure out where to begin this discussion. So many things have come up for me in the past week and a half. Okay, is what I'll call it. So many things have come up, and I realized that I should just get on here and start speaking about this. And I hope nobody feels like I have just spoken around the topic. There's just a lot to cover around it before I just get to start and recite, I am addiction free. Because I do feel like there are so many things to consider as we unpack how we reach this point where we are saying, I am addiction free, rather than I am a recovering addict. And again, no criticism towards any existing systems that have worked for many people. I have read up on some of them. I have never really embarked on any of these journeys. I've also spoken to people who have used these methods of healing. So many things out there are advertised. This is how I got here. How I got to this point is that I'd say about just over a month ago, I introduced memberships on the channel. Going along on the journey, I felt like I wanted to thank those who had become channel members for their support, okay, on the channel. And one of the ideas I came up with was to invite channel members, anyone really with preference given to channel members, to propose a question, something that they'd like for me to read on. Maybe for about a year, I've been thinking about quitting this particular habit that I have. It's unclear to me whether this habit is life-threatening or not. I can pretty much say it's considered unhealthy. Okay, it's considered unhealthy. But considering all the things that I've been wanting to align in my life, I sort of put it on the back burner. I sort of put it aside because it wasn't really taking away from where I felt I was, my healing journey. And I felt like focusing on it was sort of becoming a distraction. So it was sort of taking away from all the things that I can do to improve my life. It was sort of distracting me from those things that I can do, focusing on this thing that I'm finding very difficult to overcome. Okay, so I just sort of put it on the back burner and thought, when this and that circumstance has changed, I will get to it. Okay, so that's the route I took. That route worked for me. Okay, I'm just going to say upfront, that route worked for me because it helped me to clear up the things where I felt more empowered, like I felt like I could tackle those aspects of my life. before I start tackling this thing that I feel so powerless against. And so I did that. I had many things on my list. Once I don't have to do that work that I don't like, I will quit this thing. Once I feel like I am finally on this path of whatever thing, I will quit this thing. Okay, so I had many things on the list. And I honor that because, again, if I were to say, let me quit this first before I do that, it becomes a sort of a circular reference. And then you kind of run the risk of not achieving anything. And so I kept putting this on the back burner, and then finally all those circumstances were kind of fulfilled, and I was left with this gaping reality that I've made a deal with spirit that if X, Y, and Z are fulfilled, I will quit A. And there I was, still engaging in A and kind of left in limbo. And so when this channel member suggested that I speak on the topic of addiction, I feel like I literally responded, well, didn't you just go straight for the jugular? Because I now could not avoid this topic. To a level, I do feel like I created it myself. I'm very grateful that he put this forward. But I knew from that moment that I'm now going on a journey. I responded at the time, and by now I'll probably have posted this conversation on the screen for anyone who wants to read through it. But by this point, I knew that I was going to be sent on a journey. I didn't know how. I also knew that Spirit tends to work with me in very interesting ways when it comes to channeling for myself. Because I knew that, okay, addiction is quite a serious topic to broach, okay, number one. Number two, I haven't really read enough literature to sort of taint my experience on how to heal addiction because I was still dealing with my own addiction. I was also still carrying a lot of shame around addiction. Simple things like I can't speak about, shame is also an excuse when it comes to addiction, I must say. I'm just going to say it. Simple thing like I can't speak about addiction on the channel because my mother might be listening, for example. And so now I'm not channeling wisdom on healing addiction because I'm scared my mother will find out that I'm addicted to X. Okay. And so this is just, one of the things. But what I responded to this gentleman is that I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to let this one sit because these containers that I create, I tend to not dictate what I want out of them. And so rather, this is me asking Spirit to share the information through my container. And that's what tends to happen. Sometimes I'll do a personal reading for someone and that personal reading comes out with information that I so desperately needed. But I tend to not feel like I have access to all of the information I need when I need it because that needing of that information creates resistance within the container. Whereas when I'm reading for a collective or I'm reading for a greater cause, I hold the space. I'm not over-attached to the outcome. And so all of that water is able to flow into the container without my ego getting in the way, okay, without my interference. And so I knew that it would come through. And I had a feeling that it would come through without being very clear what has come through, and that I'd notice it on the other side, recognize on the other side that, okay, that's the answer to healing addiction. Another thing that he wanted me to read on that he added was this idea of slips, falling back or I suppose regression. Like when you say that you have quit something, okay, and you're free of that addiction or you have overcome this thing and then you have a slip up, that kind of thing. That's what he wanted me to read on. And so I shared what I found on the etymology. And I also said, the thing is that in theory, it feels easy for me to just say, this is a matter of where your power has been placed and a matter of reclaiming your sovereignty. I said it sounds very easy to just say that, but having dealt with addiction to an extent, I feel like we need more here. And I feel like we need more to work with, because when my body feels a certain way, okay, when I feel these physical sensations in my body, and especially being an empath, I need something more to work with, more than where's your power, because in the moment, I just want my body to not feel like that. And so then what happens is my decision on what to do next is then driven by how my body's feeling rather than anything else. Because up until now, all I've understood is that this feeling in my body is resolved by going to X, okay? In a relationship, this could look like this feeling in my heart feels filled by me going to Y, okay? And so I walked away from that discussion in the comments and continued to channel as I do for the collective on this Pyramid Energy channel. It feels like it was probably after about 2 or 3 readings that I started picking up that the containers were very much covering this topic of where your power is, okay? And so I got this sense as I was editing those 2 or 3 videos that I'm not actually saying that this is about addiction healing, but I feel like this is addiction healing flowing through my channel and the channelings. I felt so reluctant to label those channelings as centered around addiction healing, simply because if someone doesn't feel like they are dealing with an addiction, then they might pass up the opportunity of what the container has to offer. Another reason is that the container did not present itself as addiction healing, and I tend to just honor how the container has presented itself to not limit its scope, in a sense. Again, not wanting to project my own expectations on the container. And so I kept quiet about that for some time. Only a bit later did I go back to the comments where we were chatting with the members to say, have you noticed that we've been dealing with addiction healing in the past few readings? In the background, something else had been playing out in my journal, and I'm going to read what's in my journal to you. But what happened was that I lost access for a number of reasons to this substance or behavior. Let's put it that way, okay? I could not engage in my relationship with this thing that I felt I was addicted to. This has happened on a number of occasions, but this time round, I was able to recognize that no, this is not just a coincidence, okay? Not that I believe in coincidences, but I very much realized that given all of these conversations that I've been engaging with Spirit on power about, okay? About power and where my center of power is, okay? I knew that I am on the path to healing addiction through Spirit. And I was also very aware that, I sit in a position of privilege, okay, as a channel, because what happens is that my relationship with integration is very different to an audience member or another listener's relationship with integration. My integration is, often feels so seamless, because when I'm channeling from Spirit, I already understand that I have surrendered to my container. Okay. And so anything that flows through, I naturally trust. because I know that it is not of my own creation. When I say that it's not of my own creation, I don't mean that it doesn't flow through me. I mean that it flows through this divine space, okay? And to even reach this point where this can all flow through without my mind being busy, the absence of that busyness in my mind is what tells me that I am not creating this from myself, from my mind. It comes from beyond my mind. It comes from a place that completely understands everything. And I allow it in before I have gained understanding. Okay, so I do not filter what comes through. And because what comes through is unfiltered, it is just pure. And only afterwards, when I'm listening to it, am I often like in awe of what has actually come through. And because it sounds like my voice, because it sounds like me, it just naturally sinks into my system. That understanding naturally sinks in as I'm listening. And so that's what I mean when I say I sit at a point in a position of privilege when I'm channeling. And so in a sense, I knew, mentally I knew that whatever I channel on addiction and its healing is going to heal me. I knew this mentally. However, there was an aspect of me that was also very afraid of the work. Afraid of the work in the sense that I have engaged with moving away from this substance a number of times. Okay? This is also, it's also in like healing these karmic relationships that I have been a part of in the past. Healing my behavior around those. Deciding differently for myself. Choosing myself over my behavior in terms of that person or that thing. I have interacted with these things before and experienced major breakthroughs through that distance. I'm going to give these stories more color so that we don't get lost in this sometimes parables sounding way of storytelling. Okay. I'm going to include some of my karma, healing, twin flame style sort of story in a list, in a playlist in the description box below. For anyone who is still dealing with this or finds themselves stuck in this sort of karmic healing space. Karma twin flame narrative healing space. I'm struggling to get some of my words out, and I'm not going to edit this part of the video. I feel like this is a form of sort of solar plexus, heart, throat resistance that I'm working through here. And I will get this message through, and I'm just asking for more coherence as I move through this space. When I was dealing with healing, that part of me that did not feel worthy, the part of me that did not love myself enough to end relationships with people, places, and things, especially people that left me feeling empty after my interactions with them, In those times, and following those times where I just choose differently for myself, things shifted for me majorly in my life. Things shifted majorly. There was one experience where I decided, no, I am not going to engage in this activity or this discussion or this way of relating with this person. I know it feels difficult. I know it feels different, but I'm just going to choose differently for myself. The very following day, this is example of one person, the very following day I started channeling poetry. Okay, I knew that these things were related. I knew they were related because I felt different. It felt different. It opened my channel. Okay. On a completely different occasion with a completely different person, where I decided to handle those relations very differently. I found that when I was reading my cards, the information that was flowing from the cards visually to me was coming through with so much more clarity. Through simply just these two occasions and what the breakthroughs I was experiencing, I was able to understand this idea of Christ consciousness differently. Okay, so I know I don't want to get into the narrative of, the religious narrative of Christ and Jesus and all of that. I've got a few videos that you can go to on that as well. Okay, I'll include everything in the description box below. This pyramid energy journey has been quite an extensive one. Okay, but what I realized was that a lot of the narrative around cleaning your life up, okay, as far as, religiously we're taught that this is, I think they call this purity, which has resulted in a lot of religious trauma for a lot of us in terms of what cleanliness is in your life, okay, what the idea of perfection is in your life, the idea of being more Christ-like, okay. So I want to remove all of the connotations where we feel like dirty people when we are not, when we see ourselves as not pure, or when we see ourselves as imperfect, that there is a sense of an absence of cleanliness in us, or whatever that is. Like, I just want to remove all of that noise for the purposes of the message that I want to share here. What I found here is that when we clear up doubt, self-doubt, when we clear up the things in our lives that cast doubt on us, the things that tell us that we are not worthy of more love, that we are not deserving of better things for ourselves, when we leave ourselves to live in a state of fear, okay, there are all these things. They tend to be solar plexus related things. That sense of deserving, the sense of worthiness, the confidence, the courage, the strength, all of these ideas, the things that are opposed by the devil, if I could put it that way. What is the devil? The devil brings that sense of doubt, the fear, all of these things. The devil card, I'm referring to the devil card in the tarot, okay? These are the things that we want balanced out. Because when we are in a state of fear or in a state of doubt, for whatever reason, experience, the conversations that are happening in our minds, the things that we tell ourselves that keep affirming the reasons why we cannot show up for ourselves, because that's what solar plexus energy is. It's about showing up for ourselves. Then what happens is that when we surrender to this Christ channel, okay, this pure channel of information, this divine channel, when we are surrendering to it, we then have doubt as to whether what we are channeling is true, is right. It's things like imposter syndrome. It's that feeling where you wish you could channel like someone else, okay? You wish you could channel messages that you can trust in, but when you try to open your channel, all you're hearing is a lot of this clankering and clutter, or you say something and you think you're crazy, or before you even say that thing, the thought of the word starts coming through and then your mind comes in to block it. Okay, so there's this absence of a sense of safety within the container that you've created because there is so much doubt, because there is still fear. And the reason there is still doubt and fear often seems very basic, simple. Okay, we tend to say, I'm scared because I'm not used to it. I'm scared, or I doubt it because I haven't been doing it for that long. Okay, so we tend to give these types of reasons as to why we don't feel free or safe enough to channel, or why we don't trust what we've found. Okay, we can tend to apply these reasons. What I have found personally is that there are rather obstacles, boulders in our way, okay, barriers to our own perfection, okay, because that relationship with our intuition is always there. The problem is that the lens is cloudy. The lens has marks on it. It has stuff on it. It has narratives in the way, things that are blocking our clarity because of these relationships that we have kept around that cloud our vision. And so if I am in a conversation or a relationship with somebody that makes me feel less than, someone that leaves me feeling hurt, okay, so now this is not their fault, because if I'm being real with myself, it is me that has created and nurtured space for that person to be this way towards me in my life. Okay, we can dive into that sort of conversation, let's say on a different video, okay, around where your power sits in that sense, because yes, sometimes we are exposed to people that consistently behave in abusive ways towards us, and it affects us. Of course it affects us. What I mean is, there is this idea of how to keep an open heart, while remaining like we feel fortified, strong and resilient. Okay, resilience with a softness, with an open-heartedness. For me, that is an example of real strength, a strength that doesn't need to be hard, a strength that doesn't need to be cold, a strength that does not need to move away in order to withstand. Okay? A strength that is flexible, a strength that allows you to trust yourself in different types of circumstances. And also a strength that allows you to try something different for yourself and to show yourself more self-respect. To be to yourself the person that you'd like other people to be towards you. Okay, so the purpose of that long roundabout route of explaining how cleaning up the channel can work in certain circumstances. Okay, that was a long roundabout way of describing cleaning up how I've approached relationships and the breakthroughs that I've had through trying something different in relationships, and my own behavior that I've owned. The other thing I wanted to touch on is distance from the substance that I felt addicted to. I noticed that during the times that I was distant from the substance, okay, so it's not in my life, I am struggling with it, but with it I'm struggling with other things as well. I found that I almost like inherited a stronger magnetism. What I mean by that is that there are things that entered my life that I've wanted so badly, okay, at a point or at that point. I want that thing so badly, not the substance, but another need that I have. That other need that is more of a priority became fulfilled in that time that I was distanced from the substance. It is difficult for me to explain rationally to you how this came to be, but the understanding that I gained in that distance, and as those things landed on my lap, with no effort, I must add, no effort, okay? Big blessings were reaching me when I was distanced from that substance, okay? More than one time, and on different occasions. What I noticed was that not having that soother, not being numbed by that substance was connecting me more to my heart. I had more access to my feelings. Whether some of those feelings were difficult, they felt more difficult, yes, because usually I would just turn to the substance to ease that feeling, that yearning for whatever it is. Engaging in that substance would just ease that, let's call it pain, okay? And so I made that link that when I am able to feel more, okay, the deeper I'm able to feel, okay, that means I must feel the tough stuff too. It means I'm also feeling the good stuff. The deeper I'm able to feel, the stronger my magnet of my heart is. That was like, for me, it felt like maths. It was like simple. But now it was starting to affect me to the point where when I was then engaging in the substance again and I was not receiving these blessings, I was starting to create this like negative mindset, this negative narrative, okay, which then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where it says when I'm close to this thing, that means that I'm not going to get that blessing, which takes us back to now creating like this negative effect on my channel, okay, distancing myself from my Christ self, okay. And this is how I learned this sort of increased magnetism when I'm distanced from the substance, this increased magnetism when I am closer to my feelings, all of them, and not numbing any of them out. What I noticed with that, combined with what happens when I treat myself with more self-love, when I treat myself with more self-respect, when I accept space in my life rather than allow space to be full of things that bring doubt into my life, things that reduce my sense of confidence, things that reduce how much love I'm able to show myself. All of these things, what they were teaching me was that what goes on in my mind is very powerful. The conversations that happen in my mind, the talk, okay, the discussions that happen in Gontse's mind, the things Gontse is constantly telling herself she can or cannot do, the things that Gontse is constantly telling herself she deserves and the things she doesn't deserve, okay, whether it's directly, intentionally, or inadvertently, or subconsciously, whatever it is, through my actions, okay, through my intentions that I set, through the way I answer myself, through the opportunities I either engage in or the opportunities I block myself from, I was recognizing that those things are basically like the scaffolding of my channel. And so I better make sure that each aspect of this scaffolding is placed intentionally. Okay? And it doesn't help for me to, first of all, if I'm not ready to give this substance up or give this person up, there is no point beating myself up about it. Okay? I might as well engage in it and carry on until I'm ready and tired and sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. Okay? Fed up of being fed up. That's kind of been my approach. I'm not recommending that approach. I'm sharing my story. Just because when you turn your gaze towards circling, looping around something where you currently feel powerless and you haven't seen everything you need to see to have clarity on what is causing the loop, you're almost better off spending time questioning that loop or letting it sitting in the gunk, sitting in the funk of how unpleasant it feels, these things that you do to yourself. For example, I don't know how else to put this, but it's almost like, let me use smoking as an example, okay? I know smoking is bad for me. I know it's unhealthy, okay? However, if I'm struggling to improve my life in various aspects, I'm actually making my situation worse if, number one, I don't feel strong enough yet to quit smoking. Okay. And two, if not quitting and not being able to quit creates this narrative in my mind that keeps telling me, I can't, I'm not strong enough, I can't. And so in that case, okay, and in those cases, what I have tended to do is to let it sit. Let it sit and go back to dealing with the areas in my life or the events in my life and in my past that have left me feeling disempowered, that kind of thing. To create areas of strength, stronger scaffolding in other areas before I tackle this one that is really difficult to tackle. And I must say, I do believe that part of the reason why healing addiction is so difficult is because of the narrative around it. Okay. Similar to healing, on this twin flame journey. If we keep being told, okay, if a person keeps being told that a twin flame and a karmic is going to like somehow evolve into like the love of your life and you need to just wait or be patient and all of that, then you think something's wrong with you if you just decide to put a stop to it. You think something's wrong with you. You think something is wrong and you don't have a big enough heart and that you're not patient enough. And you could tell yourself so many things because quite simply, there's a very unhealthy narrative that has kept harping onto you that this is your one twin flame and you will not have another. Okay, so now we can go on and unpack what a twin flame is, but that's not actually the purpose of this. The point is that the narrative around twin flames is extremely disempowering. And it becomes extremely self-fulfilling as a prophecy because you actually do experience this twin flame event unfolding in your life. It is experienced and it is felt. And so when all of this labeling happens around it and all of that, you then take all of the other people's understandings and equations and you apply them to your life. And then, instead of actually like connecting with the truth of what it actually means for you, and perhaps you might actually get stuck in this circular like loop if you don't realize that the resistance causes distance and that acceptance, is what heals. And not just accepting as in embracing this twin flame, sometimes accepting that that person is unable to show you the kind of love that you need in your life right now. And in order for you to assume more love in your own life and to show yourself more love is to actually distance yourself from this type of behavior, this type of person for now, until you can experience something different. And I don't know how it is for everyone else. Okay. I don't know how it is for anyone else, and this feels sometimes like an ongoing journey, but something happens along the way when you try something different because you come through on the other side, a version of yourself that totally accepts the past version without needing that past version to exist in the current version with you. And so just to bring this back to a center, what I'm basically explaining is that I did a lot of mindset healing, a lot of worthiness wound healing, a lot of solar plexus healing, and also a lot of root chakra healing, a lot of healing before I became ready to tackle this addiction healing. I'm going to move on to my journal entry for I am addiction free. It's taken me so long to share this because I was not feeling confident yet that this was going to work. It's only I suppose today that I'm able to say to you that this works. This works because I wrote this down on the 13th of October, and I remember looking at the clock and the time was my birthday. Okay, the 13th of October is not my birthday. I mean that the time on the clock was that of my birthday. And so I took that as a message, a confirmation that this is a form of a rebirth for me. And I also, given that this is such a sensitive topic and such a serious topic, was reluctant to share this as a healing modality, okay, without any authority as far as this current paradigm determines what an authority is, and without evidence for you, okay? With that said, throughout this entire journey on pyramid energy, I am the evidence of what I channel, okay? I am the evidence of what I channel. I have no other proof for anyone. I have no other proof for anyone. There are many things. I am addiction free. I believe in my strength and resolve because I have evidence of them. I believe in my power. I no longer need to believe that I'm weaker than my impulses because it's in forgetting the evidence of my patience and my strength that I strengthen those false thoughts and beliefs. When I'm feeling weak, I can always return to my body. This is a decision I'm perceiving as true and as continuing to become true within this present moment. It's within this knowledge of my strength that I'm remembering that I am addiction free. This is my power, and it doesn't belong anywhere else but here with me. This is me calling it back. I am not broke. I am made. I am in the process of making me. And so what am I going to put in? These tingles in my body are reminders of my power. That emptiness I feel is space for me to pour love and devotion. That longing is a memory. It's a memory of a past feeling from a time that had me feeling powerless. How do I know? How do I know that this is true? I know that this is true because I'm not feeling the euphoria and the dopamine rush. What I'm feeling is a call back to the place I left because I decided that I want my power back. That longing is a memory that the past version of me uses to draw me back to it. But then I remember, it isn't a full, loving, embracing, enduring, lasting, true promise. It is false and it is fleeting. What is enduring and lasting is me. Now, my power, my resolve, my love, me. The version of me that can love me here and now and stay with me here and now. That longing is just a memory. It's just a callback, a reminder that nothing has changed other than who I put in charge of my power. And what I did with these words is I read them each day until I felt like I didn't need to read them anymore. I wondered to myself whether I should give this 21 days before I share it. I asked myself, and I'm not even 21 days in. Okay, I'm not even 21 days in. One of the other important considerations that I want to cover with this is the idea of slips, which was one of the members' things that they wanted me to consider. What is a slip? A slip is when you sort of fall or trip on your journey of being, let's say, addiction free, or you fall back into your addiction. My view on this okay, and this has helped me a hell of a lot, is that this is another example of where the narrative starts to cause more damage than necessary. Okay. The idea that I am addicted to something, the idea, even just saying that, is affirming the addiction in itself. It's affirming the devotion to a power that is beyond me. Okay? When I then redirect my sense of power back to myself, okay, devote my focus, okay, and my power back to me. So I am the powerful one here, okay? I am the boss now. I am the captain now. When I do that, that doesn't mean that should I tomorrow feel like giving someone else that power just for like half an hour, that I'm now powerless. No, it doesn't mean that. And not in my view, and I don't find that empowering at all to label myself as a failure when I slip. Okay? These slips can tend to seem unintentional. They can tend to seem unintentional. But the truth of the matter is, when you are on your way to a slip, you are not actually slipping. You are making a decision to not follow through on your decision. Okay? Your stance. Okay? And now, without being too hard on yourself and not being too soft on yourself, I'd like to take this back to, let's say, the example of drinking. Drinking is also a very serious topic, also a very sensitive topic, okay, as far as addiction is concerned. But if I'm a person who considers myself not addicted to alcohol, okay, this is the voice that I'm speaking from. I'm a person who does consume alcohol. How frequently is basically based on my own feeling, whether my frequency is appropriate or not. It's all relative, right? But let's say I drink every second weekend. Let's just throw a frequency out there. So I drink every second weekend. Am I addicted to drinking? I wouldn't say so, okay? Because if I miss a weekend, I'm not completely thrown off. And I'm not thinking about drinking every single day in between that. I'm busy with other stuff. Drinking just happens to be something that I do for recreational purposes, for what, and again, maybe drinking is something that I should completely discard in my life and not have in my life. But again, I'm not yet at that point where I feel like it is affecting my overall performance and my overall way of being, whatever it is, okay? If I enjoy, let's say, generally enjoy 3 beers and 1 tequila. I'm just throwing out examples there, trying to paint a picture. Okay, 3 beers and 1 tequila when I drink, let's say. Okay? And then one day I realize, oh, the tequila is not doing me a lot of good. Okay? So I think I'm going to cut that out. Okay? Fine. So I decide to cut the tequila out. And then 3 months later, someone offers me a tequila. Is it slipping when I decide, no, I'm not going to have 1 tequila? I'm not going to, because 3 months ago I decided I'm not going to have another tequila in my life again. No, it doesn't mean that I'm now reintroducing tequila as a regular resident in my life. It doesn't mean that. It just means I'm having a tequila. And then tomorrow, yes, I will suffer the adverse effects of drinking that tequila, and maybe I'll regret it, fine, but I'm not going to drink a tequila on Monday and then Tuesday and then Wednesday and then Thursday because I had 1 tequila. I am finding that the reason why we are so, we call it a slip. Okay. When we call it a slip, it becomes a failure. And once it's become a failure, it's more likely to stay as a resident. Because a person who feels like a failure has been told they're a failure, and therefore their confidence is down. And so when you take one event and expand it into this greater meaning, you're allowing it more space than actually it's earned, in my opinion. This substance or whatever it is could just sit in a smaller area where it takes up less space, less frequency. I think I said that right. Less frequency. Okay. And so it's not a resident. I'm starting to slip on my words. It is not a resident. It is a visitor. Okay. And it is not a general behavior. It is a visitor and can be treated as such and can be treated in a way where it should not get comfortable. And when it is overstaying its welcome, it can be dismissed, asked to leave, told to leave. Okay? And that's when you then reaffirm, I am addiction free. I'm sorry, that's when you proclaim it. I am addiction free. I have not actually had to repeat these words to myself. Okay? I haven't done it for about a week. Have I engaged in that substance since the 13th of October? Full disclosure. Yes, I have. Have I engaged in it daily? No, I haven't. Have I felt like every day is a struggle? I haven't. After like 3 days, I actually have started to really connect with this feeling in my body. This feeling that I would before have like described as a longing. I have a different understanding of this feeling. This feeling literally comes back to me. It feels like my power returning into my body. This feeling makes me feel like I'm remembering what it's like to be alive. I feel like I can feel myself. I feel like I can feel my blood flow in my body. I feel like I can feel the vibration in my flesh. I actually feel more of myself. Okay? If you, I suppose, are listening to this somewhere around, let's say I'm recording this on the 23rd of October, that tells me that's been 10 days. You will note what I've been channeling and how I've been channeling in the last 10 days. Maybe one of those days I engaged in that substance or behavior. Did I do it to a large extent? Absolutely not. Perhaps limited to 2 hours. When I returned to my normal life, let's call it that, did I feel like I needed to hang on a little longer and like, oh my gosh, did I have that usual panic I usually have when I'm about to be distanced from this substance or behavior? No, I didn't. Why didn't I experience those things? Well, my answer to that question is because I am addiction free. I am addiction free. I do not need that thing to feel powerful. I am able to recognize this feeling that it gives me that I do enjoy, but I am able to recognize that feeling that I receive in that instant as fleeting. I'm not holding it to any other enduring, lasting expectation. I do not place this expectation of it to become my savior or for it to last inside of me. I'm not placing that expectation on it. And so when it fails to meet that expectation, I don't need to ask it to meet that expectation. I no longer hold that expectation from it because it is not my savior. Okay? When I engage in it, yes, it feels a certain way for now. Do I need that feeling to last? Maybe once in my life or many times in my life I believed that. But I was believing a lie because it's never delivered in that way. It has never been lasting. And so I'm being very realistic with it because it will not last. And I'm being very realistic with my interactions with it because if I keep telling myself that I need it, I am lying to myself because I don't need it. I, as a human being, am so much more powerful than a substance. Of course I am. Like, it's like a conversation I never really had with myself. And when you have it with yourself and you actually look at a substance or a behavior, consider yourself, look at yourself in the mirror, okay, or yourself. Look at the thing or the person and actually try to tell yourself that it is more powerful than you. Try to reason through that. Try to just reason through that. And it sounds ridiculous, but I'd like for you to try to reason through that so that you can take your mind and your vision through how ridiculous it sounds once you try say it. And it's not funny. I just mean that we don't actually engage with our power to that level where I say that cigarette, that little piece of paper with the leaves that are dried and rolled in, that thing is more powerful than me. That thing has no agency. That thing has no agency. That thing has no voice. Okay, I have convinced myself that it has a voice because I give it a voice. I give it my voice when I allow it to tell me that I need it. And so this is very much about retuning and reframing. There is a video that I recorded during this time, and it's going to be listed under, I'll have these all in sections. It's going to be listed there, and it's around mind and body power. Because when it comes to addiction, you can very much feel like your body is the one calling you back to a place. But I believe that the body's language, okay, the body's language is what has been misunderstood for so long. The body is a very strong reminder of where your power is. And the body can work with the mind. But the mind needs to stop lying to the body. The mind needs to stop lying to the body. Stop telling the body that it is stronger than you, that it has agency, that it can do its own thing without your mind. Okay? And stop ignoring your body when your body is yearning for something. If your body says to you after I've just said that it can't speak, okay, but if your body is saying to you, I'm yearning for that substance, acknowledge that your body is speaking to you. Acknowledge that your body and your mind's understanding of what your body's feeling is a yearning. But allow your mind to finish that thought by completing it, because that thought is incomplete until you have said that longing feeling is a callback to something that is not lasting. You almost need to complete that thought process. Don't leave that thought process open and hanging with, I need that substance. No. I think I need that substance because I'm used to receiving such and such a relief when I engage in that substance. But I often don't lead with the reality that that feeling that is promised is not lasting. It is fleeting. Okay, so what I am fetching from that substance actually does not exist. What my body thinks it's after in that substance is a lasting feeling, a lasting euphoria, a dopamine rush, whatever it is. It will never be lasting. It has never been lasting. Okay, it has never been lasting. It is my wish that it would last. Okay, my unconscious wish that it would last, but it won't last. It is not in its nature to last. And telling myself and telling my body that it will last is a lie. And it's not serving me, this lie. And so when I recognize something as a feeling and start to accept how I feel outside of that thing and engage and really listen to my body and what my body is saying and allow my body to remind me of my power, that I am more powerful than this thing. If I can change the way I'm seeing this moment where I'm longing for this thing that doesn't exist, a form of grieving begins. A form of grieving begins. I don't know who of you have or have not lost a loved one. Okay? Sometimes through actual death and sometimes through having to end a relationship. But there's this point that you reach when you're ending a relationship where you really are determined to end a relationship, let's say successfully. Okay, this is maybe an intentional breakup or an acceptance that someone is gone out of your life and not to return in the flesh. Okay, it is accepting that the person, the way you knew them, no longer exists. In the case of, let's say, a friend you need to let go of, or a boyfriend you need to let go of, or a toxic lover that you need to let go of, or a job you need to let go of. It's often the idea of this person that we need to actually grieve, not the reality of them. When I once broke up with a friend, a long-term friend, I had to accept that my idea of a friendship had not been, was not, and was never going to play out the way that I had envisioned. That's something I needed to accept. that was very little to do with the other person. It was something that I needed to accept. And so I had to go through this grieving process of realizing that that person that I always wished to be there was never there and is not going to be there, and to accept that. And so this person then became something like a shell of something that I had wished for and wanted and showed up for, but never was. Okay, so it's almost like you've got to connect with the feeling in your body, that longing that you have come to understand as being a need for a substance or a need for a person, is to start to have the real honest conversation with yourself about what that feeling is. And that feeling in your body, what it really is your body communicating what it's habitually been used to communicating to you, which is a callback to that thing you used to believe. So your body is saying, come, let's go back to, remember when we feel like this, we do that thing because it makes us feel better. What your body is not also saying is it makes us feel better for now, for a few seconds, for a few minutes. That's what the body is not telling you. The body is not completing your sentence for you. And so when you look at that longing, in all of its allness, you no longer approach the substance as something that's going to give you a lasting feeling. And this is honestly, in my personal opinion, you don't need to beat yourself up should you engage in this thing now and again. Should you do this forever? I don't have the answer to that. What I have found is that in relationships that are toxic, this approach has really freed me. The cold turkey approach has not. In relationships, it has not. Distance has helped. Okay, so what I've done is to create distance and to communicate without, let's say, blocking the person. Blocking the person has felt like when I do have the opportunity to gain closure, I won't actually have that opportunity. I won't have the opportunity to gain closure. If that person were to ever call, I'll sit wondering are they going to call? And so I've found that not blocking them has speeded up my own healing, because a lot of those question marks are gone, because if they are going to try contact me, I will know about it. That has worked long enough for me to then come around and realize I'm ready to block that person, because I actually honestly don't feel like having the conversation anymore. It's boring. So there are various stages, I believe, of grief and of accepting and moving through, let's call it addictive behavior, is to create distance, but not to create unrealistic distance. Unrealistic distance is that aspect of distance that I believe keeps taking your mind back to the question of whether you want this thing or not. Okay, so to remove that question is to remove the number of times you get reminders about it, because it's now open. Anything can happen. Yeah, that person could call you or not call you, and someone else could call you, and your phone is open, so anyone could call you, you know what I mean? Until you reach the point where it's boring, where you just actually don't even want to try, don't even want to answer the call, don't even want to be bothered, and you don't want it disturbing something else you're having more fun with. For example, it's more gentle, my approach in that sense. So for example, with a substance, I would say eventually I'd like to not feel like having it ever again. Okay? I'd like to not feel like having it ever again. Do I think I'll ever, do I know when this day will come? No, I don't. Similar to the person that I thought I'd love for the rest of my life. The person that I could never imagine not loving, not loving, okay? How do I feel about that person now? Well, right now I feel, I have love in my heart. I believe they deserve love. I send them love and healing. Would I like them to call me? No. Do I feel like seeing them? No. Do I feel any conversation with them will bring me any new insight? Absolutely not. If they grow as a person, would I like to know about it? Not really. Not really interested. Not because I am disinterested, just because I just have no interest. I have no interest. I have watched, I don't know, what do you call it? This movie 10 times, and I just don't feel like watching it an 11th time. It's kind of like that. Do I love that movie? Yes, I do. But I watched it so many times that I don't need to, it's playing in my head, I remember the whole story. Okay? It's sort of like that. That is my relationship with what I would call slips. I do believe the slips, if you are engaging in this narrative and engaging in the truth of the conversation of what the yearning is and what the idea of addiction is and how you are reaffirming it and where you stand on what your relationship with your power is, I believe that with time it loses its power. Quite simply. It loses its power. It loses its appeal. It loses its appeal as a powerful player in your life, is actually what I'm explaining. And now the other consideration I want to touch on. A lot of these things, by the way, I dealt with in the first 3 days. I dealt with these things in the first 3 days as I was repeating this writing to myself. I'll also include the script below for you. But it was the idea of what happens if I tell people about this quitting of this thing. What happens? Because often people will follow up. So how's it going with this thing? How's it going with that? Has it worked? Whether that person engages in their own addictive behavior or not. People tend to take it upon themselves to check your progress. Sometimes it makes you feel like, oh, I slipped. Oh. Or it makes you feel like, no, but the yearning's not gone. It makes you feel, it actually distances you again from your power. And so while they might seem like they are helping and they might think that they are actually helping you, okay, and you can't stop them from asking those questions. You also don't want to make this whole thing so secretive as if it's so fragile, okay, because that's also not good for what you're telling yourself. What I'd like for you to remember in those moments is that for someone to ask you, and I'm not putting it on them, this is very much about you, but for someone to ask you how you're doing on this decision you've made, essentially, they're asking you, are you still feeling powerful? Are you still in your power? Are you still more powerful than that thing or that behavior? Okay, I want you to hear it exactly like that because that's what that question means. They may not realize that that's what they're asking you, but that is what they're asking you. And in that moment, that's where you check yourself and you remind yourself that, yeah, I am the most powerful thing over that thing. Yes, I am still in my power. I am. Even if you have that thing in your hand, and this is not denial. This is not denial, do not get me wrong. Even if you have that thing in your hand and in your space, you are still more powerful than it. If we are talking about a cigarette that you're going to take a drag from, you are still more powerful over it because you are the one taking that cigarette and putting it in your mouth and inhaling. It is you. And when you say you're going to stop and you need to walk away from it, your power does not stay there on the table or in the dustbin or in the ashtray. Absolutely not. You walk away with your power. Especially because you haven't deluded yourself. You have not told yourself that that feeling is going to last. You have your power. Okay, you do not need the distance to prove it. You do not need the distance to prove it. If you tell yourself that you need distance to prove that you are addiction free, that means that you're going to then beat yourself up when you feel that yearning, because as soon as you feel that yearning and you haven't unpacked that feeling of that yearning fully for yourself, you're then going to move to feeling powerless, which is not something you need to feel or believe, because you are powerful. I'm going to close this here. We are 1 hour and 20 minutes in. I want to say that I'm so grateful for At Loud Medium for suggesting this as a topic. because I might have run away from it for very long. I feel a bit bad for not sharing this sooner, but I believe I needed to be ready. There were creative blocks. There were throat chakra blocks. There were, all these blocks around how do I approach this? Am I ready? Which parts do I address? Do I then become the model example of what successful addiction healing looks like? I had to consider all these things. And I realized that actually I'm living in the moment. I feel like so much of a better person now that I have engaged in this healing. I feel really privileged to actually engage in this. Here's a big question. Do I wish I had never touched that stuff? No, I do not wish that. Why don't I wish that? Okay, because when we have engaged in an addiction for so long, we often tell ourselves, I wish that had never happened. Well, it is part of my story. There are so many parts of my story that have been part of my creation. I could say, I wish that relationship had worked out. I could say, I wish I'd never met that person. I could say, I wish I'd never lost that job. I could say, I wish I'd never been hurt by that thing. Well, then I would not have gone through the healing. I would not have found out how strong I am. I would not have found out how resilient I am. I would not know how psychic I am. I would not know how in touch with my emotions and my mind and how powerful I am as a person. I would not know all these things. My struggles have been my paths to healing. Do I need struggle to heal? Absolutely not. But do I need to deny my experience? Absolutely not. I always thought that I could curse the day that I came across this substance. I thought that. And now sitting where I am here, I don't. I very much welcome it as a part of my journey and a part of my experience, because I don't know what it feels like to feel this powerful in my body and to feel my body speaking to me the way it is right now, even in this moment. I don't know what that feels like when you have not lost your power before. I also don't know what it's like to safeguard a powerful, clean, aligned mindset when it's never been fractured, when it's never been scattered, okay? When it's never been hijacked. I don't know what it feels like. All I know is that I have to safeguard mine because I know what it's like when it's not safeguarded. Like my energy. I know why I need to safeguard my energy. I know why. Okay? I know why because I have experienced life with my energy being channeled everywhere except into me. Okay? And I know that I now have more energy to share when I safeguard it. Because then the flow is like continuous rather than me trying to survive on what is left of my energy, okay, of my supply. A part of me does feel like this has been long, but I actually just had to ease up and allow it, because the truth of the matter is anyone who thinks that a 20-minute video on healing addiction is what's going to heal them without them actually applying themselves and engaging, I don't know how that's going to go. And so this is really, I feel, a much more integrative method of transferring and offering this healing to you. Similar to all of my other healing products, they are all my voice, sharing my words. This one very much through the lens of my own expression, because it is what it is, and I thought at some point it would come through in a container and I'd be able to deliver it, but that day was not coming. I believe that I was meant to deliver this as myself, as Gontse, as the experiencer, experiencing, okay, as the living being, sharing where I am on this in very much the present moment. Okay, not as someone who has healed addiction, but rather as someone who has overcome the negative and stifling and disempowering mindset around what addiction even is. Okay, because the narrative then allows it to live bigger and stronger and larger in your life than what it's earned and what it's worth. And really, those are my thoughts. I don't know how this will land on anyone who is dealing with an addiction to a very serious substance, okay? I don't know, which is why I shared the disclaimer. I don't know, and I don't wish to experience that in order to have to figure out how to heal it, okay? I do, though, believe in principles. I believe in principles, and I find that often where we take a situation and allow it to be exempt from a principle, we should rather look at why we have made exemptions for this scenario and really question whether we are making an excuse or not. I do believe cold turkey is a big part of the process. To create that distance is necessary for a while. I do believe every individual is different. Every individual needs to connect with their body and what's actually happening within their own mental narrative and all of that. I do believe that has to happen as well. This is more around the tools and more around the way that I have done this for you to see how it applies in your life. In a sense, one could call this a form of hypnosis. And when I think I should look up the word hypnosis before I just butcher this and start my own thing. Hypnosis meaning the induction of a state of consciousness in which a person apparently loses the power of voluntary action and is highly responsive to suggestion or direction. Its use in therapy typically to recover suppressed memories or to allow modification of behavior has been revived, but is still controversial. The way I'm understanding those words is as if it's similar to my readings, really, where the resonance opens the door for you to become, open to different words, energy, a renewed understanding, to allow it to seep into your current understanding and allow your current understanding to be moved, to let your guard down and allow a new understanding to be considered in your life. And then for you to engage in that thought process where you kind of get to choose, do I keep this or do I discard it? And if I'm discarding it, then you go on that journey to figure out why, or you move on until that opportunity arises again. Or you take up the opportunity in that moment to accept it as part of your understanding, and that is the integration. That is the integration. And I believe that this discussion and the way we're talking about it is a big part of the integration. To sort of engage in this conversation and these questions and some of these answers, to play around sort of with the scenarios and to just deepen and widen understanding, to increase your chances of opening up your understanding of this and really considering how it could apply into your life and understanding. The integration. Because healing information is one thing. Integrating that healing information is where the real opportunity for healing lies. That is the actual healing. Integration also happens over time. Some of it is instant, but it happens in layers. And to uncover those layers requires the shedding to also take place, and so it happens in stages and through time. A lot of it very naturally, and some of it as you hit obstacles needs to happen more intentionally. But essentially the information is there, even if a lot of it has not been received consciously. A lot of what I've said in this hour and a half has seeped into your system. It has seeped into your system and will integrate itself into your system as your body and your system and your mind and your heart become ready. Even the sound of my voice, with time, will continue to resound, will continue to resound. Okay, the sound will repeat below and above your conscious understanding. It will repeat. I'm almost seeing like the frequency line and the vibration moving below and above the line, okay? It will integrate with time. And so you do not need to leave this video or this reading, or not reading, this time we've spent together here. You do not need to leave it feeling healed. Absolutely not. You are your own healer. Time will heal you. If you're open to the understanding and it resonates, you will recognize that you're already healed. You're actually free from this understanding that had you thinking that you were addicted to anything. And I'm not gaslighting you. I'm not gaslighting you. We are very much dealing with healing addiction here. We are just not giving the substance the power. We are redefining our understanding of where the power has been sitting. We are also redefining the understanding of what giving this power to this thing, which lies we have told ourselves about the feelings that we get from this thing being lasting. Okay, we are redefining our understanding of what addiction means and assuming our throne. We are resuming our sense of power and our place on our throne. Thank you so much for allowing me to hold this space for you and for trusting me with this topic. I hope that you have found it insightful, and please feel free to leave any questions in the comments. Please remember to be kind and mindful given the topic at hand. Sending you all so much love.